Agro-Allied analyst. So we're talking about food. Talking about food is everything. Yinka, what do you make of yesterday's trading session on the exchange? I think we got a slight gain. How did you see things on the market?
Yeah, yesterday the markets gained 4 basis points. Yesterday, it's just a slight gain, and overall the market is still down about 6% year to date. I think yesterday's gain was just a push from slight price increases across select individual stocks. It was not like there was positive sentiment across the board, as we saw losers, gainers, and flat prices on most of the stocks. Largely, market activity remains quiet because the activity in the market is still mainly driven by crosses.
Okay, great stuff. What about the Agro-Allied players on the markets? How did you see their, their performance?
Yeah, okay. So for the Agro-Allied, there is no major index on a standalone index on the NGX that tracks the performance of the Agro-Allied like we have for the consumer index and the banking stock index. But I think what we can look at is the performance of the major Agro-Allied stocks on the NGX in recent times. Say the best performing over the last 10 to 15 years, that would be Okomo and Presco. If you look at these two companies, Okomo has gained about 20% year to date. I think it was flat yesterday, while Presco is down about 4% year to date, also flat yesterday. For me, I would say the differentiating factor in these two stocks is mainly the understanding of their processes and also an access to information on the side of the company. So more or less, we've seen a mixed performance from the Agro-Allied sector.
All right. Thank you for that. And as far as, I guess, moving away from the stock market, just in general, any recent notable trends in the Agro-Allied space that you can share with us?
Yeah, for the Agro-Allied space, I think the most interesting thing there now is price increases. Significantly, we've seen price start to increase since, say, mid-2020, and prices are significantly up in the current year, 2021. I think most interesting for me is the price of palm oil. We've seen the price of palm oil gain about 30% year to date. And when you compare the price of palm oil, current prices of palm oil in the market, to the average price in 2020, it is up about 70%. In a similar vein, the price of sugar, wheat, and other commodities have also increased. If I may talk about the driver of this price increase, in the markets, you see that Nigeria does not produce all that it consumes. So that gives room for importation into the local market. What this means is that once we have price increases in the international market, it tends to also flow down into the local markets, whereby you see price increases in the international markets impacting price increase, causing price increase in the local market. Another thing to consider is also the weaker currency. As we know, the Naira has depreciated in recent times. So what this just implies is that the landing cost of your commodities for those importers increases, the Naira cost increases also. So another thing to note also is that you have the likes of palm oil, which is on the CBN's FX restriction list. With this FX restriction, it means that the importers will have to go get their dollars from the parallel markets, which makes them tend to price their commodities in line with the parallel markets. So you see that significant jump in prices wherever we have FX liquidity in the market. As we know, the parallel market is at a significant premium currently to the CBN's IEFX window. So those are the two major drivers of price increase in the market.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the CBN and the restriction list and so on. What do you make of the central bank looking to add, this is on maize now, looking to add about 50,000 metric tons of maize to the market? What are they hoping to achieve with that?
Yeah, I think 50,000 tons of maize into the market. It might not seem a lot, but I think the good thing on the part of maize is that the local deficit of maize is not that significant when you compare it to the likes of rice and maybe palm oil, tomato, and the likes. According to the USDA, I think the local deficit of maize is about 400,000 metric tons. So you can expect 50,000 metric tons to do some good in the market. I think there was a report that also stated that in January, the CBN released about 300,000 metric tons of maize into the market, and that's crashed prices. So it's likely that these 50,000 metric tons of maize does some positive in the market. But I think for me, the concern there will be if this is a sustainable approach or if this is a permanent fix, because it is just like you are releasing maize into the market from your reserves. I don't know if this reserves is being replenished at any point in time. So I don't think it is a permanent fix. I think it's just a temporary fix to help the market.
Okay, great stuff. And my next question for you, Yinka, is on meeting domestic production, from rice to sugar to maize. Nigeria can't seem to meet your domestic production, and we just keep importing so on. So what needs to happen for us to meet domestic production?
That's a good question. I think in my view, I think it's more of action on the part of the government, because if you take the like of sugar, for instance, you have a master plan of sugar which has been in place since, say, 2013. And that master plan just tells you that Nigeria as a whole is expected to be self-sufficient in sugar as at 2020. But if you compare the reality on ground today, Nigeria is not self-sufficient. We still produce just about 2% of what we consume. That's sugar-wise. 98% of the sugar consumed in Nigeria is mostly imported in raw form. That's the crude sugar, then refined by the likes of Dangote Sugar and flour mills before being consumed by the market. So I think for me, it's more of action on the side of the government. If you make these policies, try to push them, try to see them go through into the market, try to make sure that they are achieved. Your goals and targets are achieved. Yeah. Another thing for me is yield. I think the yield per hectare of production of most commodities in the country is significantly low when you compare it to other countries. Say for palm oil, also the yield per hectare of palm oil in Southeast Asia is about 4 metric ton. On an average, when you look at Nigeria, our production is just about 1 point something yield per ton per hectare. So our yield is significantly low. I think another aspect we can look at it is improving yield per hectare, because we have this land, we have the farmers working on it, but the yield is not as good as what we see in other countries.
Great stuff. Very, very in-depth. Thank you for that. So that brings me to I hope we get inflation figures today. What do you expect? I know at 17.9 is where we are. Headline food is 22 or so. Well, what do you think? What do you think we'll see for inflation for June?
Okay, for me, if I may start with the trend we've seen in inflation in, say, recent times, I think we've seen inflation start to moderate in the past 2 months. We saw it decline in April and in May, as you rightly said, 17.93 in May. That was from a high of 18.17% in March. I think this moderation in inflation has been largely driven by the moderation in food inflation, the ease in food inflation. We've seen food inflation trend downwards from the high of about 22.95% in March 2021 to 22.28% as at May. For us, we think that this was the result of the decrease in the rate of food price increases in the markets for the months of April and May compared to other months. I think it is likely that we see food inflation continue to moderate in the near term if food supply to the country continues. However, a major risk to that is an increase in banditry and insecurity in the country, which will most definitely affect supply of food into the market. But looking at our expectation for the month of June, I think we currently expect inflation to come in around 17.6 to 17.8%, somewhere within that range, largely as we expect the moderation in food inflation and consequently the moderation in headline inflation to continue. I think going forward, we also expect things, inflation to moderate if things do not change drastically.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, yes, things are still very high. Go ahead, Val.
I say interesting insights, very interesting insights, and it's good to pay attention to these details because they affect everyday life as we complain.
And the banditry, the insecurity, it started out as I guess a political thing, and you can see how it has filtered into and affected the economic metrics here, because this issue of supply of food and how it's affecting the nation. I mean, look at what it's doing. Let's not forget the border closure. Yinka, that definitely had an impact. Now, did it not? As far as the border closure is concerned, on food prices? Yeah,
it did. I think we saw the major impact of that was seen. The border closure was in August, so we started seeing the major impact of that in August 2019. I think since then things have changed. We have prices significantly increasing. So it's not. I think the border closure now is not a major factor like that, but it's still good news if you have food commodities flowing in from neighboring countries. It will definitely help supply of food in the market and also help prices.
Great stuff. The only issue is that we just need a customs that is capable of monitoring the borders to make sure that these things aren't smuggled, because so many other things. I mean, I don't know. Val, we talked about that as a tanker of fuel or big vehicle with bags of rice get past the borders without custom officers, not them. So
or looking the other way.
Yeah, so there's that's something that has to be looked at. Gosh, I really hope we get these numbers today. Anyway, 8:30 a.m. is hopefully when we will. I guess they can't tweet it, obviously, because the Statistician General of the of the Bureau of Statistics, Yemikali, he normally tweets and says this will come out on this day, but
he can't.
Yeah, we can. So we now just go to the MBS website and go and take a look at the website and see if just refreshing and see whether it comes up. Olayinka Adesanya, Agro-Allied Research Analyst, Stanbic IBTC. Really appreciate you coming on the show today and taking us through the Agro-Allied sector. We all wait with bated breath. We'll see what those inflation figures, if they come out today, we'll see what they say.
Well done. Thanks, Rotus. And I like what I saw earlier before we went on live, all right? Keep it up, bro. Stay with us on Student Breakfast and stay fit. Today is Thursday, the 15th of July. If you want to recap, please